Lance, we've been around you long enough to know consistency is a big thing for what you want in your program and how you guys do things day to day and year to year and all that. I wonder, was there anything different or unique about this spring that stood out? Maybe not that you did differently, but just something that made this year different than past years.
I don't know. I think there were parts of there were some things that were definitely better. I think there were some things with some of our energy and physicality and some things that we were doing at a better level. I'll say this, without a doubt, I thought transition, orientation, whatever you want to say with the newcomers would have been a lot more difficult, bumpier, and more things than we had. So for that, I'm extremely appreciative of our guys. The newer guys have come in, our returning guys that have helped acclimate them to how we do things. We do a lot of checks and balances in this program, and our punctuality and things like that of being what we're supposed to be doing the things that we ask our guys to do was significantly better than where we were a year and 2 years ago, which with even the veteran team that we had, it really shows that this group understands. It's probably a credit to some of the programs that they were in and what they've been used to and things like that. But that part I'm extremely pleased with. We've made a lot of improvement, but also we have a long way to go yet and a lot of things we got to clean up. But that was probably the biggest thing. I think another small thing that's probably standing out to me is now that, at least in this program, by rule, we can have our analysts and other people coaching guys. The amount of players that come in and ask for extra help, you can see guys wanting to be coached, trying to ask more questions, doing things, and I think we're becoming a more knowledgeable football team as we go along, and I look for that to grow through the summer and as we head into camp.
You mentioned those newcomers, and we talked to a lot of them over the last few weeks. So many of them seem so comfortable already. I wonder if that's just a sign of culture being firmly and fully established.
Yeah, sometimes, I would, I'm looking forward to sitting down with these guys next week and get a little deeper into some of that in my end of the year meetings with them because of some of that, I guess, smoothness of transition. I'd like to find out maybe, hear from guys and why do they think it's gone that way. Again, between our assistant coaches, our strength staff, support staff, I think we make it pretty clear what the expectation is and that it's consistent across the board, and our guys see that. And every time there's one or two little bumps, it's easy to get somebody on track. And like I said, we've been able to do that. And I do think it again. For some guys that I guess do relocate in this new way of doing things, it's usually for opportunity, and we always talk about making the most of their opportunity, and they need that. Sometimes as we tell our guys every day, time's slipping through here, and that every day you're one day closer to completing your career to sort of maximize the opportunities and I think some of these guys have really taken that to heart and making sure they're doing that.
Coach, just kind of going off what you were just talking about with new guys coming in, Chris Kleiman talked last week a lot about the transfer portal and just kind of the struggles with you don't know if the guys you have now are the guys you're going to have in the fall, and maybe you're going to have new guys, and he went on for quite a bit about it. I was just kind of curious how you've kind of adjusted to this new era.
Yeah, as I've said on some of these, Chris and I have talked, and other coaches, it's very unsettling in this new way of doing it. The portal opens back up, and like I said, you have a group of guys, and you think things are trending in the right direction, and you kind of got an idea where your team's heading, and then all of a sudden you get that text or phone call that can really change it. As we look at the settlement coming, hopefully they get things done here sooner than later. I think there's a lot of things going on with commissioners, and so talking to government. We're just looking for some more regulation, and you keep hearing guardrails and all that. We need to get some more consistency, and you see it in other sports than ours as well. I just don't think where we think in society it's healthy for a young man to go to 8 different schools in 8 years. I'm trying to figure that out. Where we think that's healthy for life. And I know then the quickest thing that happens is somebody talks about coaches that move on and things like that, but there are stipulations for all of us, and whatever that sweet spot is to get it, hopefully we can get there and have consistent rosters that you can continue to make this as competitive as possible.
And then you have guys like Jalen Daniels, who is returning. He's been with the team for several seasons now. It looked like he practiced more today than past days. Just kind of what's his progress and how good is it to have him coming back?
Yeah, he's gradually coming back. Everything points that he'll be 100% involved in everything that we do by start of summer workouts, everything. And he threw Skelly yesterday and did well. He got in more things. He's been Jalen, if you've met, if you haven't met him, but his personality, his positiveness, unfortunately he's had missed time, but through that he has learned how to stay engaged, how to be part of, I think Jim Zebrowski's done a great job. We do some 2-minute drills in situations. He's let Jalen call the 2-minute drill, so he's thinking down and distance, doing some things where we keep challenging him, and he'll be ready to go. So,
with it being this era, talking to recruits, talking to guys who are on the team, they talk about the way that you communicate with them and being upfront and honest. How important is that sort of in today's college football?
I think it's extremely important. I believe it's the way I've been raised. I think it's the way I've tried to do it. It's disappointing when you hear, and I say this probably too often without getting too much on a soapbox here today. We create a lot of our own problems in this sport. And sometimes, when something gets implemented, there's always pockets that are always figuring out how they're going to get around it, how we're going to beat it, and what we're going to do. And like we always say, the best things I hear in recruiting is the consistency, the transparency, and the integrity in which we go about it. And we want to continue to do that. That's the way. Again, it's not perfect here, but as you say, and I think that helps when you explain to young men that you're going to be dealt with in such a way that you're not always going to hear everything that you want to hear, but you're going to hear things that you need to hear. That goes with personal growth and things that, again, helps you to find it that you're not on school number 8 by your senior year in college. So that we sit down, and when you sit down with families at the end of a recruiting visit and they talk about that, and I still think there's a good portion of people that really want to see their son grow and develop, not just into outstanding football players and finding a way to capitalize monetarily. They want them to have a plan after football and grow and become the man, the son, the sibling, and future husband and father that they want their children to be. And it's still, hopefully, between that and the educational part of things, we haven't lost sight of completely what we started off when we got in this business.
A lot of newcomers heading into the spring. Was there a position group that maybe heading into the spring you were looking at saying, hey, I'm not entirely sure what we have here, that you feel a lot better about coming out of the spring?
Yeah, there's probably multiple ones. Probably the one that hit me pretty quickly is the receiver position, because when we lost really the top 5 guys that played the most, and to see what we have, I really like what those newcomers and Doug and Keaton and can give us. Even our 2 or 3 early enrollees that came in showed flashes, and all our early enrollees is the other thing is. To me, I'll tell them this next week, is the evaluation on the early enrollees isn't really till like the second week of camp. for me, because that's where they become a little bit more, familiar with things. You can see the progress that they have over other people, of the other newcomers coming in. But I'd probably say the receiver group is probably the one that would. I also probably like to say, the linebackers, that we also was a position that we had a lot of depth. I like the way those guys have come in, and they've been everything we wanted them to be.
Lance, a lot of new guys in, a lot of experienced guys out. Did you like the leadership you saw from some of the players?
Yeah, we're getting there, John. We're probably not as comfortable and complete as we want to be, and we need, and that'll be, Matt and I have talked about that, about some of the off-season things that we need to do to, now that some of the guys have kind of been on the field with us, been around this group, some of those guys that have come in need to, now that they know the routines and they're older players at their position, they've got to be a little bit more comfortable stepping up. But I still think we have solid leadership. Bryce Foster is also competing in track, so you look at somebody like him, it's kind of in and out in the leadership area up front. Kobe Baines is a guy that's really, really come a long way in trying to be more of a leader. Really has kind of turned the corner as far as putting the extra time in, doing things like that. We got some other position groups that have worked nicely in that area.
You've got a spring now with DK and Jim. What did you see from them as coordinators?
I'm really pleased with both sides of the ball, and how the staff's working together, how they've kind of taken charge and doing things. DK's put a standard on the guys and what's expected each and every day, as far as effort and strain and putting some things together for our defense. I like what we're doing. Excited to see where it's at, and again. Staff continuity and alignment is extremely important to me. And when I'm in each room and to kind of hear the dialogue, I know it's productive and excited about what those guys will do.
Who were some of the guys who kind of surprised you that kind of emerged into a leadership role?
I guess I go back to a Kobe Baines. I think in his own way, a Daniel Highshaw has taken a big step in what he's been trying to do. The three defensive tackles that have played the most, Tommy, DJ, and Blake, have started to take steps like that. Probably one I skipped over that is Justice Finkley's a guy that's very mature, he's very businesslike out there. He's got a great work ethic. All those things, he's emerging as a guy that's respected, just how he goes about it each and every day. Taylor Davis has taken big steps in what we want from him, and DJ Graham will be another one that I think will emerge in that group from there as well.
Lance, how do you make sure that when you end the spring on a good note, and then you have many months off until fall camp, that when you pick up in August, there's no setbacks? How do you keep those kind of guys, doing the right things off the field in that in between
Well, that's
time?
what we talked about, making great decisions, doing things, and as I said, we've got to capitalize on all this time before they head home for a few weeks. They got to maximize time in the weight room, still find ways to get better, take care of themselves. Whether it be through diet, rest, weight room, training room, finding ways to continue to be in the playbook and find ways to stay on top and stay sharp, because we can't come back at the beginning of June and be starting over completely over again. Okay, whether that be in strength or conditioning or really knowledge of the playbook. Same thing will be when we report, late July. We got an earlier start than ever, so we've got to make sure we're on top of it from there. And we talked about it this morning as we left the field.
Lance, I think you mentioned on Saturday, with all the new faces, you've kind of had to change up a little bit of coaching style and dynamics. How different has it been this year with the way you have had to do things versus like a year where you had a lot of continuity like last season?
It's different, again, to keep pushing competition and understanding and finding a way of how guys respond to coaching, what is it, but again, kind of to piggyback off the question about our coordinators, and both sides, and I look at probably on defense, DK, had his time in the NFL and stuff, he's very consistent, but he's also, there's no gray area. What he expects and what he wants, because this is the way it needs to be done. If not, somebody else is going to get the opportunity. So, again, I think, as I said earlier, when guys come in and do those certain things, guys want to know where they stand. The question is, can they always take, can you take the coaching? Are you willing to move on from there? And we challenged this group really after the first week pretty consistently, and some of those were the newcomers, is if you want to be the player you want to be and fulfill the opportunity that you came here to hopefully achieve, you've got to be able to take the hard coaching. You've got to take and own what we're seeing on film and take the things and get better at it. And I think this group has. And we talk a lot about being coachable and body language, and I like where this group's at.
The wide receiver room, is there a position group now that spring's over that you're looking to in fall camp take another step, maybe like the wide receivers did?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot that we got to continue. Up front is still going to be a little bit of work in progress for us in the fall camp, and there's, whether it be through added strength in the weight room, knowledge of the offense, different things. I don't think there's a lot of positions yet that we're not ready to say this is going to be the starting unit. So it'll be very competitive. I see us playing a fair number of guys in the back end of the secondary. I think we'll rotate some guys at linebacker probably as well, because we feel good about our younger guys that have come along as well through camp. We always rotate up front defensively. So I think we'll continue to play a lot of guys. But if there's probably the one between the tight ends and offensive line, we still got some things that are still going to be competitive through camp.
Jalen would be able to go in the summer. Are there any players who you don't think will be able to go in the summer or even longer?
I haven't got all the full, Nolan Gorsica yet will be one. I'm not sure when he'll be cleared to do things. Harry Stewart will be one that we will probably monitor more towards the end of May, of exactly what his return to play time will be. And then David Abajuan will not be available. He went through another knee surgery here this last week, so he will miss next season. So, I think those are the ones for now. Is there anyone else you were thinking of in particular? I might have forgot, but those would be the ones.
So big spring for Colt Ballard, for Zeke Marshall, for David McComb with Jalen out. What did you see from those guys? You said you wanted to see growth.
Yeah, same thing. Great growth from year to year. Another year of growth or spring of growth. Like I said, it's terrible. It's sad that Jalen couldn't do as much, but then for a second spring, you get a lot of reps for the guys who are behind him, so you actually are creating a ton of really good depth. So Cole's really good. Cole did a great job. Zay did a great job. Got David reps and Mikey got reps. David got McComb, a young guy, got reps. I was really happy with those guys. Really happy and pleased.
How is the partnership with you and Lubin going so far?
Awesome. And he's my guy. I was joking around. He's a guy who has a great perspective on life, going through what he went through. So it kind of gets me back. He always calls me, Happy Z, how you doing? Tries to keep a smile on my face because of what he's been through. And he's always said he took stuff way too serious before to kind of put everything in perspective, what he went through. So it kind of keeps me, I'm usually happy. Every once in a while I need it, but Matt's off. Matt's the best. He's just the best.
David McComb, just how do you evaluate a freshman quarterback who enrolls early in terms of how successful that spring was?
Getting a playoff. Here's the unique thing about us is obviously all the motion and movement and stuff we're doing. Really, to be able to control. My biggest thing for a young kid, a young man, is to quarterback-wise, is to can they get the huddle commanded? Because a lot of times guys aren't in huddles a lot, or they're using signals or whatnot. Can a young man get in there, read this wristband, and then be what we call a traffic cop? Can he put everybody in the right spot? And if they don't, the toughest thing for a young dude is if they don't line up right. Now he's supposed to fix it. Well, heck, he just got here. But now that he's really high football IQ. So from high football, I was really pleased with his performance of being able to get to huddle and get a play off. Because practice, how we practice so fast? You can't do that if you're having all these issues and concerns in a huddle, not being able to get it going. And you can't play kids who can't handle that. Because quarterbacks can wreck a practice pretty fast. In terms of getting, I'm saying, huddles and all that stuff and false starts and all that stuff. He was terrific. So I'm really pleased with the way he is. Obviously, talented young man, but I was really pleased with his mental capabilities.
Lance talked about the wide receivers room. Just where's your confidence level in that group at?
High, really high. Like, I was excited about those guys. You're excited when you recruit them. You're excited when they get here. And then you get 15 practices with them. You're like, hey, it's going to be okay. And really fun. And what I told you the best thing, I think T-Sam probably would say the same thing if you talk to him or Lance, really good kids. Like, they gelled really fast. They're not like, I have to have the ball or they really pull for each other. And that's really biggest thing offensively, like I told you before, how fast can we get all these guys together and connected? And I thought the receiver room was terrific. And they played a lot, so I'm really excited about that. I think it's losing a really good group of young men. I think we gained a really good group, so I'm excited about that group. Pleased.
Was there anybody that kind of stuck out to you that surprised you, who kind of emerged into a leadership role?
I don't know, good question. Daniel Highshaw was really good. I don't know if that's a surprise being an older young man, but I think he has matured. I think he's watching Devin. I think helps, and now he kind of is like, hey, I'm the guy, and I thought he did a great job. Another young man who I'm really pleased with, attitude-wise, is Kobe Baines. Like, he's had his ups and downs and all this stuff. He's terrific. Like, did great. And I think he's kind of, growing into that leadership type role. Bryce Foster, another one, a great, he's a terrific kid, young man, but really did a good job at the leadership role. I think those guys have kind of been the guys. Jalen, obviously, the best he can do when you're not playing, but I think Jalen was a great cheerleader is probably the wrong way to say it, but a freaking cheer. Like, Jalen is a great teammate in terms of cheer. You see him out there. He's as excited for someone else throwing a touchdown or making a big play as he is himself doing it. So I thought he was great with that. And I think the guys, him being able to practice last couple of practices, get some things done, I think guys were all excited and be like, okay, it'll be good. And then we got all spring, but I thought those guys are kind of the ones that stood out.
And we hear a lot from the players about culture here, right? Yeah. What do you do to kind of instill that culture in a lot of the new guys, as well as what's your idea as to what the culture is here?
The culture, like I said before, is kind of built into his sleeve. I think he does a great job, and that's why I think they get it. We just kind of build off of what sleeve does. Like, we have to live it as coaches, and we have to live on the practice field. I think you see the practice field and how those kids, I think the older kids did a really good job leading those kids through. I think culture kind of shows in the rough times, the tired times. How do we keep practicing and keeping things going when you're tired or concerned or whatnot? So I think that's kind of a lead by example type thing with those kids out there. And I think Sleeve does a great job weight room wise, and we as coaches just build off what they do. I mean, we believe in, like, I don't know, it's simple to say, but it's hard, like, we buy it, we're in. Like, we're all in. I think the kids see us as coaches all in. I think they're like, hey, we need to jump in. And the tough thing is, Lance well enough, talking to him for many years, if you're not in, you're not in. Like, you have to be all in. So I think that's what we kind of live it, see it, show it. Like, you can't play if you're not all in. You need, buy-in is the key. So the kids buy in, they know that. I think we teach them right from the start, like, you're going to be in or you're not going to play. And that's the way it is.
I know this isn't uncommon, but I wonder how important is it to you for skill position players on offense to have background play in other positions, whether that's wide receivers that played running back or tight ends that played somewhere else, maybe receiver or whatever, and just kind of grew into themselves. Do you find that an advantage with guys that have that knowledge of another position?
It is. Guys, I think it is a really big advantage. Really on either side of the ball. I think sometimes I really do. Like, and this is totally off the wall, but I remember getting into college football, and gosh, I talked to somebody back in the day, and they're like the best DBs they've ever had were guys who played quarterback somewhere back in the time, because they know the route combinations and see inside and stuff. So I think sometimes guys who played running back their whole lives and also become receiver, become really good yard after catch type guys, that kind of stuff. So I think it's really good to be versatile in that deal. It helps them become able to play faster, kind of see the game from a different perspective.
You've been an offensive coordinator before, but going through this spring as the lead coordinator, like, did you learn anything about how you want to approach the fall from these practices?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think anything new. No, I think you just learn the thing we as a staff try to do, me personally, is like, what is this group going to be great at? I think that's the hardest. You're who you are offensively, but then, like, what are the things we do the best? And what are we going to end up being the best when it's crunch time in those third downs, the red zone, the crucial situations that we need to obviously do better in? What are we going to call? What am I going to call? What can these kids perform? So I think that's where I've learned from this group, or learning, I should say, is like, hey, we're going to be able to do this, I think. I think we're going to be able to do this and that's kind of how you build those special moments or the key moments. I call it situational savvy. The situational awareness, situational savvy type plays the quarterbacks need to make. What can they best perform play-wise? So I think that's what I learned, or am learning still. And that's why our practice is really good. Red zone, you see us in practice. We have as many situational opportunities in practice that I think helps us get to that point.
15 practices.
You're way back there, man.
I know. They're sticking
You
me
got
back
kicked
here.
out.
What do you think of the offensive line after 15 practices?
I'm pleased with them. You know, we're young in the back end, I guess, or the second or third guys. And I'm telling you, the amount of reps those guys get in the the best thing for our 2 huddle is guys get a ton of reps, and young guys get reps. So I'm pleased with those guys of how they performed. The guys like I said, you heard me talk about Kobe and Bryce before. Those guys did a really good job. The older guys performed well, and the guys that have been around. But really happy with the guys getting a ton of reps. I think our defense has done a great job all spring. So I think they're going against really good people. So I think there's some bad plays that happen sometimes. We learn from them. And the way we practice is sometimes you get these 2s and 3s going against 1s. And you sink or swim, man. You figure it out. I think it helps. It's kind of unique. Sometimes in practice, you're like, ooh, that's not a goal. That ain't so good. But then all of a sudden, the next play, they get them. And they keep going. So I love how we practice. I'm pleased with where they need. Obviously, I keep getting better and so on and so forth. But they got a ton of reps, and they're going to keep getting better. So I'm excited about the youth, the young guys in that group.
He got back in. Was he able to get some reps
Yes,
in?
he was. It was fun to see him. It was so funny. I remember DK, you were all smiling. We saw him finally come practice 11 or 12 or something. But it's kind of that fun deal to see him come back. You're like, because you get caught in practice, not in like all of a sudden I'm like, I didn't realize he was there. I'm like, hey, who's that dude? Like just because you're so caught up into practice. So it was fun to see him. And obviously played a lot of plays football. Played a good amount of football. So excited to get him back out there and see and get him to at least know what's going on, or get some live reps, I should say, before we get into this little, I hate to say break, but a little break from practice, I guess.
So you said right now you're still kind of figuring out what this offense is going to be best at. Is there any early opinion on, what's looking really good so far?
No, I think we are going to be similar to what we were, obviously, and we're going to keep the same structure conceptually. I think we'll be moving a lot, and I think the good thing that's happened is I'm really excited about the stuff we've been doing in some of the RPO, quick game type stuff. I think has always got to be a big part of what we do. We need to get the ball out of our hands fast. Like anybody does, it's hard to block people for long periods of time anymore. So I'm really excited about that group. I think we have guys who can make people miss. I think that's key. So I'm trying to figure out how we can best keep getting guys in space. Because talking to defensive guys, the hardest thing to do right now is to tackle in space. It's just hard. And we got to do a great job offensively keeping guys, being able to be physical up front and get after them downhill sometimes, but also get these guys in space. I think that's, you saw Devin last year and those kind of guys make some plays in space. I think we've done a good job this spring, putting these kids in positions to make plays in space. So I guess that's a big, I don't know necessarily a change, but a big part of what we're going to be doing is trying to get those guys the ball in space and let them go make plays.
You've got a lot of guys at tight end. You guys have traditionally liked to play 3 tight ends, maybe even 4 tight ends at times.
Yeah.
Do you feel that rotation is coming along, and what have you seen from that group?
I do. I'll tell you the group. We talked before about Deshaun and Keon, those guys. Carson Bruins had a really good camp. The guys really came on, and he's bigger, 245, 250, I think, something like that. He had a really good camp. So and Layden was back again. So he had some guys who had some reps. Bringing some older guys, you got a good group. So I think we'll be in that same ability to be able to be very versatile and multiple in our personnel groupings. There's nothing that losing Jared and Trevor has not. We brought enough guys in where we can still be very versatile. Those guys have all shown the ability to be threats in the pass game. I was trying to think of the right word. Be threats in the pass game, which is huge for us to have those guys occasionally be able to go vertical down the field. So I'm excited to be able to put 11 on the personnel one play and then 13 personnel next play or whatnot. So I think we'll still be able to be very multiple with our personnel.
Coach in the NFL, and I wanted to kind of get your perspective on NIL, the transfer portal. Do you feel like it's very similar to what professional football feels like now, or is with all the transactions and everything?
That's a great question. Some of the things are really similar. The fact that guys are making money. You're talking about contracts and different things like that. Of course, in the NFL, it's a little more structured. As far as you may have a guy, you draft him, he's probably going to be there for 5 years, and then the 4th year you can renegotiate that contract and different things like that. Where here in the NIL era, it's more like, Heck, we might be in negotiations here in the next coming days with guys. And so that part is really tough. There's just a lack of structure that we have now in NCAA that's a lot different than the NFL. It's just a lot more structured and controlled, and you kind of know what you're having there. But the free agency stuff is the same. Like I said, guys getting money, that's the same too. And I'm happy that the guys get to get paid now and get a chance to make money off their name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, and you talked about lack of structure. Is there a positive for you or negative? Like, kind of, where's the line in that sense?
It's both. Yeah. It's really both. Right now, we had 39 seniors, so without the transfer portal and different things like that, I doubt if we were able to bring in enough guys to kind of fill that up. We would be a lot younger team now if it wasn't for the transfer portal. But, the transfer portal giveth and it taketh away too. And, there's going to be some guys. There's some guys who left. And, we might have that again. I hope not. But you just worry about that, as you go. But you just try to create a great culture that guys just want to be here and be around. And, if it's about money for guys, hopefully you got enough to pay them. And if you don't, and that's what they want, then they're going to go and take other opportunities. And like I said, I'm happy that guys get to do that. And I'm also glad that we're allowed to bring guys in that can help us fulfill our roster. And I'm happy with the guys we brought in.
And now, like, the conclusion of spring practice, how was your first official spring with Kansas football as a DC?
It was a lot of fun. We wanted to play fast, physical, and for each other. And I think those first two things we really did a good job of. We're playing a lot faster, just watching the film, which is great. Our guys are flying around. And when you play fast, naturally you're going to play physical. If you run that far to the football, man, you're going to want to make someone pay when you get there. And so we've done that. We call some turnovers and different things like that. Nowhere are we close to where we need to be to go play a game right now. But I like the steps we take. And I think the next step as we go into the summer and different things like that is we got to grow closer together, playing for each other. I think when you bring this many new guys in, the opportunity for them to get to know each other is very important because, the more you know people and the more you care about people, you go harder for people you care about. And so we're just trying to get guys to that point where they really care for one another and play hard for one another.
Coach, in terms of the new guys who come in, is there anybody who kind of stuck out to you?
I think they've all done a great job, really, really happy with them. First of all, just happy what they've done off the field, coming in, studying film, being acclimated to the group. They all have done a great job with it. Bengali has done a great job. He has a great skill set that we like. Joseph Sipp has done a good job. Trey Latham, list keeps going on. The new DBs we brought in are doing a great job. Lyric has taken a great leadership role. Justice Fink is, a great natural leader. He's the first one out to practice all the time. So the great thing about it, when you bring guys in from a lot of different areas, they got a lot of different experiences that they bring to guys and that they share with guys and some of the highs and lows that they had. And I think that's really been good. And like I said, they all have stuck out in a number of ways. You watch the scrimmage, today, and, we've had some of those guys, they're running around, hitting people. Laquan was smacking people today, and that's fun to see. And
in terms of, we hear a lot of players talk about culture. How do you get guys to buy into the culture so quickly?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you got to have a culture that guys want to buy into. We always talk about buy-in, but you got to make sure you have something in place that people can buy into. And I think you just got to give them a vision of who they are and who they can become. I know Coach Leipold does just a masterful job of creating culture here, and then that's echoed by Coach Sleeve and all the rest of us coaches too. So I think we do a great job of giving the guys something to buy into, and then guys make the choice to buy into it because they see the results of what happens when you do it right. We're not just making guys do things for any reason. We do it because that's the best chance for them to have success. And so I think when guys see that and new guys coming in, they see that the older guys have done that and they've gotten better, I think it makes it a lot easier for guys to buy into.
On that same note, a lot of these guys you've been around a couple years now, you know them, you know what makes them tick, they know you. With the newcomers, how do you do that dance of, I think Lance just said that your standard and the standard you put from in terms of effort and strain for these guys is really impressive and something guys connect with. How do you do the dance of guys you just met, newcomers, getting on them, pushing them so early in your relationship with them?
Yeah, I think it's just about trust. You can only push people to the level they trust you. And, for me, it's, the biggest thing is being competent, giving them something that can help them. I think we all kind of trust people more that can help us. And these guys just want to come and be helped. So I just give them that. I try to have great character, try to be the same person every day. They know what they're going to get from me. They're going to get the truth from me. And I think guys really respect that. They might not like how it comes across, but I think they do like that I'm going to be honest with them and go from there. But if you have competency and you got character, I think guys really know. And they know I care about them. I wrap my arms around them. I love them up. But they also know there's a standard by which we play, and I'm not going to let them fall below that standard. And most of all, I want to make sure our seniors go out playing great football. So, man, I pour everything I can, and I know our coaches do, into those seniors going and playing great football. So I think when you're competent, you're caring, and they know that you can help them, I think it's easy to gain trust there. And then trust is easier, lost than gained. So you just try to make sure you're doing the right things, that you're not losing that trust. And when you're wrong, you got to admit that you're wrong. And I've done that with guys, and our coaches have done that with guys. But also, man, you got to put the stick to them, too. Guys still crave discipline because they want to be the best they can be.
Lance had talked about the analysts, how much they help you guys out. Does that help you get around and work with the defense instead of being stuck with a position group?
Oh, without a doubt. I think, the new rule that we have of, those analysts get to coach is really, really helpful. Just all those guys from Burkett to Deneen. Those guys are masterful coaches at what they do. And so it does allow me to kind of go around and be with the DBs a little bit, be with the linebackers, check on our big guys up front, and just kind of see some things and kind of be an extra set of eyes for our coaches too. So I think that's a great rule. And then we're in special teams. I see Coach Deneen down there working with the defensive linemen, and I think that's big time too, because those guys get that extra teaching that they wouldn't get if he wasn't able to coach. So it's a great rule, and then we're very fortunate to have some great guys who can help us with that too.
What's the addition of Deneen been like, and does he tell you how good he was?
He does. He lights up when we get a chance to talk about him. We had an alumni event last night, and you could tell he was in his element there. He had about 3 buttons unbuttoned, and he was ready to rock and roll. So, but Coach Deneen is, he's tremendous. He's tremendous. And I had the opportunity to coach in my alma mater when I started my coaching career, and it's just a certain level of pride that you have when you get to coach at a place that you played at, and you had blood, sweat, and tears. You in the locker room with the guys. It's just a certain level, that you have. And I can see that in his eyes. I can see him, the excitement that he has when he's on the field. He knows he's helping the Jayhawks get better. And I love having him here. He's a great guy, great mind, and a great guy to bounce ideas off. So I'm really fortunate to have him here with me.
Lance was saying that the linebackers were really standing out to him this spring. What is it about that group that is looking so good this early?
Yeah, Coach Simpson does a tremendous job with those guys. First of all, like we talked about, building a relationship, first of all, and then he does a good job just coaching them. And then we got a lot of talent in that room and a lot of depth and a lot of competition. I think the competition really stood out this spring for us, because those guys knew they couldn't have a bad day. And so, competition brings out the best in you. And I think it really did for that group. They didn't know who was ones, who were twos. And, we really still don't. But we know that we have enough depth to go out and try to win a championship this year. I like that those guys can come off the edge and blitz. We got a group of guys who can cover. But most of all, we got a group of guys who can run and smack people in the mouth and try to separate them from the football. And that's the part I love, the physical part about them. So they do a great job of playing fast. They do a great job of playing physical. And now we got to get them to be more leaders and more vocal. And we got a couple guys in there who are doing that, but I think the summer is going to be really important for that group to make sure that they're doing a good job of being vocal and playing for the rest of the team.
In the safety room, you had talked kind of before the spring how interested you were to see the leaps for Taylor Davis, Mason Ellis, some of those guys. How did they fare in coming back, and what was their spring like?
They did a really good job. Really good job. I'm really happy with Taylor Davis. He's really taken a big step. First of all, in his leadership, he's vocal. You hear him every single practice being out there. And then as far as playmaking, he's got his hands on quite a few balls this spring, which is, I think, the next step he had to make. Last year he was just kind of out there. He filled in a role that we needed with injuries, but now I think he's taking a step with leadership and making plays. Mason Ellis was a guy who played early for us, and he had the injuries, and he did a really good job. He played a little nickel for us, too, this spring, as well as playing safety. And if he can stay healthy, he's another guy who can have a really good year for us and help us be a championship defense. And then the addition of Lyric, like I said, has been great. I mean, he is a pros. He is a leader, and we're really happy to have him. We really hit it big with having him on our team right now.
Does it help in terms of teaching the defense when you're going up against an offense like you guys have with the multiple personnel groups, with the shifts and all those things? How does that help them get ready and kind of learn what they need to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our offense just they provide so many problems for you, just the way that they motion shift, so many different formations. And so it's like a master class in learning for our guys, because a lot of that we don't get to see in our conference, but against our offense we do, from 12 personnel to unbalanced. All that stuff is just great stuff for us to learn, for us to get teach tapes, for us to go back over in the summer. So if you can communicate and get lined up against our offense, there's not too many offenses in the Big 12 that we won't be able to communicate and get lined up against. So we're really fortunate to get a chance to practice every day against that type of offense. And Coach Z and those guys, they do a tremendous job, as well as the talent that we have on that side of the ball too. So when you got to guard those receivers we guard, or when you got to wrap up, High Shaw, man, you're going against some of the best guys in the Big 12. And that's really fun.